Helltown, Ohio, a place where history and horror collide. Once a quiet community, it was suddenly abandoned in the 1970s when President Gerald Ford signed a bill allowing the government to seize land, forcing families from their homes. What was once a thriving township became a ghost of its former self. Whispers of a ghostly bus roaming the empty roads, satanic rituals deep in the woods, and a cannibal lurking in the hills turned Helltown into one of the most infamous urban legends in America. While some stories are nothing more than myths, the eerie silence and decaying remnants of a lost town still send shivers down the spine. Step into the shadows of Helltown, Ohio, where eerie legends refuse to fade, and discover the chilling stories that still haunt its empty roads. Deep within the woods of Helltown lies a small, forgotten cabin that no one dares approach. Built in the 1800s, the cabin once served as a retreat for settlers who sought peace in the untamed wilderness. However, it wasn't long before strange happenings plagued the area. One by one, the settlers vanished, leaving the cabin abandoned and untouched. Legend has it that the cabin is cursed, haunted by the restless spirits of those who disappeared within its walls. Some say the building was constructed on an ancient burial ground, and it was this desecration that angered the spirits, leading them to claim the lives of the settlers. Others whisper of a darker presence that resides there, an entity born from the darkness of the forest itself, feeding off the fear of those who venture too close. Those who have dared to explore the cabin report hearing the sound of footsteps following them when they try to leave, the creaking of the wooden floorboards as though someone is walking in the shadows behind them. People have said they've seen faces pressed against the cracked windows, staring out at them with hollow eyes, only to find the windows empty when they turn back. And some claim that at night, the distant howls of wolves echo through the woods, but when they follow the sounds, they find themselves lost in a twisted maze that leads them straight back to the cabin, no matter which direction they go. The abandoned Presbyterian Church in Helltown is no ordinary building. Locals speak of its twisted past, of strange rituals that took place within its crumbling walls long before the government intervention. The church, built in the 19th century, was said to have been constructed by a secret group of Satanists with symbols of dark worship hidden in plain sight. The most terrifying feature of the church is its iconic upside-down crosses, which many believe are the telltale sign of its satanic origins. The truth, however, is far more sinister. At night, when the moonlight filters through the broken stained glass windows, the crosses seem to glow with an unnatural red hue. Whispers of chanting can be heard when the wind howls through the vacant building, and some say they have witnessed figures standing in the shadows, staring with hollow eyes, waiting for the next soul to stumble inside. In the dead of winter, when snow blankets the ground, visitors have reported feeling a chilling presence surrounding the church. Those who dare to enter often claim they feel as though they are being watched by unseen eyes, and a thick, suffocating air seems to prevent them from leaving. Many have tried to photograph the church at night, only to find their cameras malfunctioning, frozen frames of twisted, shadowy shapes that vanish once the flash fades. Perhaps the most famous of all the Helltown legends is that of the monstrous serpent, known as the Peninsula Python. According to locals, the creature was no ordinary snake. It was a mutation, born from the toxic chemicals that leached into the land from the Krejci dump. The dump was a site of environmental disaster, and some say it was this very pollution that created the twisted, monstrous creature that lurked in the nearby woods, preying on whatever dared to cross its path. Described as an enormous, terrifying snake, larger than any creature known to man, the Peninsula Python's scales were said to gleam like oil, and its eyes glowed with an eerie, supernatural light. The serpent would strike with lightning speed, devouring anything it could find in its path. Animals, and even humans, who wandered too far into its territory. Stories abound of campers, hikers, and curious adventurers who disappeared, never to be seen again, their bodies found later, half-digested and grotesquely twisted by the creature's venom. But the true terror of the Peninsula Python lies in its ability to regenerate. Some claim it has lived for centuries, feeding off the toxicity of the land, growing larger with each passing year. The creature is said to dwell in the thickest parts of the forest, moving silently through the trees, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Those who have come across its tracks speak of a stench that fills the air, a noxious odor of decay and rot that lingers long after the creature has gone. To this day, the legend persists, with some locals insisting that the Peninsula Python is still out there, its hunger unsatisfied, stalking the darkened woods of Helltown, waiting for its next victim. A decrepit, rusted bus lies abandoned at the outskirts of Helltown, surrounded by overgrown weeds and the echoes of forgotten lives. It's a story that has haunted the area for decades, one of the few remnants of the past still visible in the decaying town. This bus wasn't always empty, though. Once, it was the temporary home of a family whose house had been taken by the government. Trapped in limbo, waiting for repairs to their new home, the family took refuge in this old, decrepit vehicle. But tragedy struck when the family vanished without a trace, leaving only their belongings behind, untouched, as though they had been taken in the middle of their lives. The bus soon became a symbol of sorrow and unrest. Locals say the spirits of the family never left. Those brave enough to approach the bus have reported hearing the sounds of children crying, muffled voices pleading for help, and the faint smell of old cooking food wafting from the cracked windows. Some claim to have seen a figure moving behind the fogged-up glass, but when they knock or peer closer, the figure vanishes, leaving only the sound of scratching on the walls. At night, the bus is said to come alive, creaking and groaning as though driven by unseen hands. Those who venture too close claim to feel a strange force pulling them toward the vehicle, an irresistible tug as if the bus itself wants them inside. The air around it grows heavy and the temperature drops sharply, a warning that you're not alone. But if you're foolish enough to board the bus, you may find yourself lost in time, trapped in a ghostly moment from the past, unable to leave until it's too late. One of the most cursed locations in Helltown is the infamous Devil's Bridge, a small, dilapidated structure that spans a creek at the edge of the woods. Locals say that this bridge has seen countless unnatural occurrences throughout the years. The legend goes that during the early days of the town's founding, a man was accused of witchcraft and executed near this very spot. The townsfolk, in their blind fear, threw his body into the creek, and with it, they cursed the land. Those who cross the bridge at night claim to hear whispers in the wind, sometimes frantic, sometimes soft, but always unintelligible. Some say the bridge itself has a dark energy that causes those who stand on it for too long to feel as though they're being pulled into the water below. There are accounts of drivers who have crossed the bridge only to find themselves inexplicably stuck in place, unable to move their cars for minutes or even hours, as if some invisible force has trapped them. At midnight, the bridge is said to be alive with dark shadows that slither along the wood, watching, waiting. Those who have crossed it at this time have claimed to see figures standing on the bridge, their faces obscured by hooded cloaks, murmuring in languages that have been long forgotten. The worst of it happens to those who dare to stand alone on the bridge after dark. The whispers become clear, beckoning them to follow the shadows into the creek, where the man's vengeful spirit is said to drag them down into the depths. Some say the town's tragic history isn't the only thing that haunts the woods and streets of Helltown. There are stories of spirits that roam the area, their presence felt by anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. These spirits are said to be the restless souls of the town's original residents, whose lives were torn apart by the government's intervention and the destruction of their homes. But it's not just the townsfolk who haunt Helltown. There are whispers of something darker, creatures that once walked the earth in human form, but were twisted into grotesque shapes by the same poison that corrupted the land. These wraith-like entities are said to appear at dusk, cloaked in tattered robes and moving unnaturally fast, their eyes glowing a sickly green. Some claim to have seen their faces, half human, half monster, twisted in agony as they silently stalk anyone who dares to venture too far into the woods. The worst encounters happen in the dead of night, when the spirits appear to follow their prey just at the edge of their vision. If you're unlucky enough to make eye contact with one, you may find yourself drawn deeper into the darkness, your senses dulled, your body stiffened with fear. The spirits will lead you in circles, confusing your path until you're completely disoriented and unable to find your way out. By the time the sun rises, you'll be lost forever, your spirit trapped among the others that roam the land. Some say the valley near the former site of Boston Township is the source of an unnatural, blood-curdling scream that echoes through the night. The sound is said to rise from the depths of the earth, coming from a place where the land is poisoned with the remnants of the Krejci dump. No one is sure where the scream originates, but its intensity and horror have drawn many to the valley, hoping to solve the mystery. Those who have ventured into the valley at night have reported hearing the scream at different times, some saying it sounds like a woman in agony, others claiming it's the roar of something much larger. Some believe it's the cry of a lost soul, forever cursed to suffer because of the land's twisted history. Others whisper that it's the voice of something far older, an ancient entity awakened by the toxic spill, a creature that now prowls the woods, calling out to anyone foolish enough to listen. The scream is said to be accompanied by other strange noises, whispers, hissing, and sometimes the faint sound of footsteps approaching, only to disappear when you turn around. No one has ever fully tracked the origin of the scream, and those who have tried to stay in the valley overnight never return. The legend grows darker with each telling, and some believe that if you hear the scream, you've already sealed your fate. Helltown is more than an abandoned town. It is a place where time stands still, where the past refuses to be forgotten, and where darkness takes on a life of its own. The government left it behind, but something else remained. Something that waits in the empty buildings, lurks in the poisoned soil, and whispers in the silence. The legends of Helltown persist because people still feel its presence. They still hear the voices, see the shadows, and smell the decay of something unnatural. But the real question is, are these just stories? Or is Helltown keeping its secrets hidden in plain sight, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to stumble into its grasp? If you ever find yourself in the woods near Helltown, listen carefully. You might not be alone.